My name is James McCann. I'm Director ad interim of the Pardee Center for the Study of the Longer Range Future. And we're here in Dire Dawa, Ethiopia, attending a conference on the study of Ethiopia, really I would say Northeast Africa, where people are gathering to try to put together some ideas on the nature of history, culture, transformational kinds of processes that are going on within this region. It's a remarkable event that takes place every 3 years. This 18th conference on the Ethiopian studies is a key point in drawing together people from Europe, from North America, from the Horn of Africa, to talk about trends in economics, trends in culture, trends in intellectual property, many things that will begin to set the terms under which this part of the world interacts globally. This is the first time we've moved out of the first world beyond just coming to Addis Ababa. Having come to Dire Dawa, you appreciate the importance of place. Dire Dawa is a place that reflects a wonderful example of the coming together of culture, of economy, of language, and it gives you a feeling of sort of a pace of life, sense of what the ecology is. It's a fascinating place to be, and also a great place to have a meeting. In terms of the Pardee Roundtable that we've introduced this year, the most exciting thing is that it engages individuals who represent different perspectives on this part of the world. That would include policy development, communications, the ecology of innovation, political discussions, economic trends, biodiversity, the cultural production of materials, the importance of higher education in the sciences, and how does that relate to the broader nature of education. By drawing these elements together, we think we're really going to be able to get people to be thinking in a collective fashion, stimulate new kinds of thoughts that will affect policy and the way people live their lives and their perspectives on their world.
I'm Xavier Marshall. I'm the European Union Ambassador to Ethiopia. I've been in Ethiopia for 2 years, and I'm starting to understand the Ethiopian mind, which is not an easy thing to start with. But when you discover it, I think it's fascinating. I think this conference is very interesting because it gives us an opportunity to go out of our offices, get down into the arena, speak with people, and I think we need that to continuously improve our knowledge about Ethiopia, Ethiopian matters, so that we can do our work better. My presentation at the roundtable is about the conservation issue in Ethiopia and how those assets can really play a role into the development process. Ethiopian assets are fantastic and formidable, and they are unique in many respects. But many of those endemic plants or animals are threatened right now because of the challenge of the population, the challenge of development. This country is very busy moving a development agenda as fast as possible, and perhaps sometimes in this process can be tempted to ignore that development doesn't only mean moving fast to develop your people, but also means to have a future in mind, because you cannot have a future in a country if you don't start first by protecting its basic assets, because it is on those basic assets that all the development process is going to take place. The essence of my presentation is to project and to demonstrate that it is in the interest of Ethiopia to integrate better and fully its biodiversity assets and its landscapes and its environment into the socio-economic development process. In a country like Ethiopia, there would be a tendency to say, you know, what comes first, the little animals or the people? Well, that's a wrong question. The real question is, how can we integrate the little animals into the development process so that it becomes an asset into the socio-economic development process of Ethiopia?
My name is sereke-brhan. I'm a professor at the University of Hamburg right now. And I've been living the last 4 years in Djibouti, working with the Intergovernmental Authority on Development. My presentation on the roundtable is to look into how foreign policies on common needs of people as well as governmental actors in the IGAD region are going to develop over the next 10, 20, 30 years. One observation I have is when it comes to the conflicts in the region, people and governments are not very outspoken about the conflicts. People don't talk to each other. If I could, I would ask people to write a 2-page paper, not more, say, well, this is the nationally defined interest of this country, of that country, of that country. The conflicts of the region, it's not only about economic interests and political contradictions, it's also about cultural perceptions. If you force them to name their interests, over the long run we can do mediation support unit, shuttle diplomacy within governments, and find common solutions. I'm excited to be here at this conference because the simple fact that we have a kind of public place and that people are given the possibility maybe even to oppose each other is already a kind of progress. If I look back into the European history of enlightenment, you organize also public spheres where you can oppose each other peacefully. And then look, of course, into the possibility of, you know, creating a kind of peaceful environment within the coming decades. Another important point in my presentation is that by 2050, 75% of the region's population will be under the age of 20. This is a big challenge for all foreign policy-related actors. How do we cope with that? How do we build educational institutions? How do we create maybe a kind of awareness of being together within a region? By creating, you know, a kind of not only intergovernmental organizations, but transnational organizations.
My name is sereke-brhan. I am a former postdoctoral fellow at the Pardee Center at Boston University. I studied African history, but currently I'm doing research on intellectual property issues as it relates to African culture production. I am very excited to be here to present on intellectual property issues as it relates to African cultural production. Cultural production is outputs that come out of cultures. This could be knowledge about biomedicinal plants. It could be books, poetry, film, folklore, tangible and intangible products of culture that can then be exchanged as goods and services. The existing intellectual property laws do not protect what we consider to be African indigenous knowledge. Outputs that come out of African cultures is considered for the most part to be in the public domain. There's no one single author of these bodies of knowledge, and so they're accessible to everyone. That has been a problem. We can look at the kente cloth from Ghana, for example. Kente cloth is massively produced in places like China, but the creators don't benefit from the mass production and the sales of these designs because the laws are set up to protect designers that can claim singular authorship. The copyright issue in Africa is a very complicated one because there are areas in which it has been extremely beneficial. For example, when it comes to music, artists have been able to organize, trying to stop bootlegged copies from being sold, so they've been able to benefit financially. But because international copyright laws are there to protect Western centers of knowledge production, they actually work against Africa when it comes to access to educational material. What ends up happening is you can't photocopy textbooks, you can't make copies of articles for students, you'd have to pay extremely high rates for royalty, and you can't afford it. One of the discussions that I'm hoping we can spark at this roundtable is a discussion about transmission of culture, preservation of culture, in a way that is meaningful and relevant and sustainable over time. Creativity doesn't happen in a vacuum. People engage with past creative artistic productions to create new things. The question then becomes, how do we create critical dialogue with past works? This is very important because, in the end, preservation really is about human development. Transmitting to the next generation is a very important thing.
My name is Makhresha Fettana. I am a professor of plant science at Addis Ababa University, the vice president of Addis Ababa University for research, and I'm a fellow of the Ethiopian Academy of Sciences and its vice president for natural science. My topic of the roundtable is improving the quality of science education in our schools, both at the high school and tertiary level in Ethiopia and in Africa in general. Currently in Africa, our contribution to scientific knowledge is quite low. This is because the poor state of science education in these countries, and also to our inability to attract our talented students to science. Without basic science, it's impossible to address the issues of climate change, energy use, medicine, etc. These require core knowledge of basic sciences, which is a springboard for advances in these fields. As important as the subject is, there has never been a forum to discuss how to raise a culture of science in society. If we have a society that has a very good basis in the sciences, then we will be generating knowledge, and that will be the basis for advancement. So it's very critical. As regards the state of science education in Ethiopia, science is taught more theoretically. Students have to be introduced to practical aspects of doing science. They have to be inspired, and they have to be analytic. When one talks about research and science advancement in the 21st century, this is related to sociology, political science, intellectual property rights, etc. To have an interdisciplinary roundtable and the chance to interface with the audience offers a rare opportunity to discuss about improving the quality of education from the perspectives of these different disciplines.